All right, hello everyone and welcome. We're going to give the rest of the attendees another minute or so to join us. While we wait, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. All audience members are muted throughout the session, so if you have questions or any technical difficulties, please use the question function on your Zoom toolbar or the chat option, and I'll help you during Marc's presentation. The session today is being recorded, so feel free to fully focus on the content today. You'll be able to watch the recording later. And finally, we're bucketing the time at the end for Q&A, so please submit your thoughts and questions throughout the presentation, and we'll have a lively discussion at the end. I'll be back in just a minute and give our other attendees another few seconds to come in, and I'll be back with Marc. Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the final session in today's virtual summit. My name is Hannah Zwick, and I'm the Director of Marketing at CourseKey. For those of you unfamiliar with us, we're a mobile attendance tracking platform used on more than 80 campuses across the country, and we're very excited to be facilitating today's events. And we hope you've been able to attend more than one. If this is your first one of the day, it's the last one of the day, but like I mentioned, you will be able to access recordings later. For the next hour, we'll be hearing from Marc Barron on the topic how to make sure your tech systems keep you in the game and off the sideline. Marc's the VP of Integration and Operations and a co-founder at CourseKey. He brings more than 5 years of product development experience to the table, and he's led software integration conversations with our enterprise clients for the past 2 years. Again, we're trying to have a lively Q&A discussion at the end, so please ask questions throughout, and Marc will answer those later on. And finally, we seek to end this about 2:55 p.m. Pacific to honor our commitment to bringing you this content in under an hour. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to pass the mic over to Marc.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate the introduction. It's great to be speaking with you all today. I've had the pleasure of working with some wonderful people over the past several years, and I'm excited to share a few things that I've learned along the way. A little bit about me. I've been awarded 2 patents for using location-based technologies in the education setting. I've led partnerships and integrations with campus management, Orban, Canvas, STARS, FAME, just to name a few. So I'm extremely familiar with the systems available in the space today. I've implemented enterprise technologies at dozens of campuses across the country. So I have a good understanding of what success looks like when implementing a new technology. And more importantly, I've learned there are things that can be done from the top down to not only speed up that process, but also reduce friction along the way. I also have 5+ years of leading product development, which means I've spent years building solutions to problems people face in the education sector every day. So a little bit about me. Next slide, Hannah. Okay, so a little bit about the agenda and what we're going to talk about today. We're going to play a little game which consists of a short series of poll questions. We're going to discuss the significance of the game and how to win in your industry. Then we'll talk about the difference between change and transformation and what you should care about. After that, we'll discuss the future of automation and how to set expectations internally in order to mobilize your team and get them on board. Finally, we'll discuss the power of having integrated systems and why the future of business requires it. So let's play the game. The game is called Sideline Slaughter. And the purpose is to take a personal inventory and ask yourself, if your business was a game, are you just a player? Are you positioned to win? Are you on the sideline watching others play, which is a guaranteed ticket to the slaughterhouse, which is why we call it Sideline Slaughter. We want to make sure that you guys aren't sitting on the sideline and you guys are actually playing to win. This game is much better when there's a physical audience, but it'll be insightful either way. For the sake of time, we'll try to get through each question in no more than 10 to 15 seconds. So Hannah, if you can please explain to everybody how to interact and answer the questions from their end?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
absolutely. I'm going to take us to the first slide inside and launch the poll. So you will all see a series of 5 questions right now. Mark can start walking you through those. We'll leave the poll open for about a minute and 15 seconds, and at the end, we'll go through the results.
Okay. Thank you. So, the first question is, has your organization eliminated manual data entry into your SIS, LMS, and CRM? So it's kind of an all or nothing question. If you only have one of the 3, then the question applies to just one of the systems. If you have all 3, then the question applies to all 3. So even if one of them require manual data entry, then your response should be not yet. Okay. And for the second one, it's does your organization have a system that auto-populates information into your LMS, SIS, or CRM system without human intervention? So is there a mechanism to transfer data automatically from one system to the other? If so, then select yes. And the third is, how frequent are your tech systems updated with student daily records? Records can mean anything from attendance, grades, quizzes, assignments, student record of services, etc. And then the fourth one is, who here feels like they have systems and processes in place today that will allow them to double their student count in 6 months? We were asked this around 6 months ago, and I thought it was interesting. And it really made us look at the organization as a whole, which is something that doesn't happen every day. As executives and operators, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day operations, and we sometimes forget about the vision or goal in a given moment. So this question kind of forced us to ask ourselves if we're being proactive versus reactive. If the goal is to grow the business, then what are we currently working on daily to preparing us for this growth? So that's the purpose of that question. And then, the fifth question is, do you believe that the technologies used today in your organization are innovative enough to be the technologies you use 10 years from now? So having a system that grows and evolves as your company grows and evolves is key. And it is something that is worth asking every vendor or partner that you have. So Hannah, I don't know how much time we have left, but we'll give everybody a few more seconds to answer these 5 questions, and then we can move on to the next slide.
Perfect. Sounds wonderful.
And then if you want to go ahead and display the results if possible, and or read the results.
Yeah,
once
let's
everything's done.
Yeah, 5 more seconds and then we'll close the poll down. All right, and share results. Are you able to see the results now, or do you need me to read those out?
I can see those. So let's just do a quick recap. So about 91% of you have not eliminated manual data entry. And then we have about 73% that have not, what is it? Does your organization have systems to auto-populate information into your system? So 73% of you say not yet. How frequent are these systems updated with student daily records? We have, more than half of you doing it daily, about a third doing weekly, close to 20% doing hourly, and then nothing in the other category. And who here feels like they have the systems and processes in place today that will allow them to double their student count in 6 months? A third of you say I do. That's great. That's really good. And if you believe that technologies used today in your organization are innovative enough to be the technologies you use 10 years from now, about 20% of you say I do. Now, this is more just to be insightful for you guys. And I really love this, and I appreciate you guys participating. And I hope the purpose of the game is apparent after reviewing the results. Because everyone on the call today are leaders in the space. You took the time out of your busy day to come and learn something new in hopes that you'll take something away from this presentation that will help your organization get to the next level. So there's something to be said about your efforts. But, reviewing the results, despite the fact that you all are early adopters and innovators, the results indicate that there's still more that can be done. Since people in this room are still working on building more scalable systems, it's likely that the majority of the market is barely getting started, which means there's opportunity. Okay? So, here we want to know if you're winning. If the goal is to win, then when will it be the priority, right? And is there a good time to implement change is the question. As leaders, we always like to think that things will slow down. We like to put things on hold so that we complete current pending projects. But the reality is things never really slow down. They never really get easier. The budget is really never there. So the challenge persists because we always find a reason to kick the can down the road. And I kind of put this image here because I wanted to first make our marketing director mad for throwing off her branding. And second, because I feel that we've all been guilty of running away from the perfect opportunity because we thought the timing wasn't right. So if the goal is to win, and we can see that there are other leaders in this sector that are still working to standardize their processes and scale them, then where do we start is the question. So, well, I guess it starts with reflecting on the organization and asking the hard questions. The problem is that this usually takes you down a rabbit hole, and it's hard to kind of pinpoint, what should be prioritized, what are the root causes of some of the issues that we're having on campus, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important that you use data to make decisions so that you can take a quantitative approach, not just a qualitative. So I'd like to share a case study from the University of Oklahoma and how they did just that, okay? So the case study was conducted in the College of Arts and Sciences, where there are 7,000 students, 50 majors, 28 departments. So a pretty good size sample group here. They identified that a typical employee spends 30 to 40% of their time looking for information locked in email and filing cabinets, okay? They were able to accomplish this by being intentional and analyzing the people and processes in the organization. So, they said, okay, we have this, we have a growing student population. We don't really want to scale the people. We don't really want to onboard a ton of people to handle these processes and handle the student population that we have. So what can we do to see where exactly the bottlenecks are? So they actually did an internal investigation and found out that this is where a lot of their faculty are spending time. So they identified the problem, backed it with quantitative data, which could then translate to cost, which at the highest level, that's what it always comes down to at the end. I know that there's always tons of ideas thrown at, the leadership and executive team. And those ideas are supposed to translate into, these stunning results. And at the end of the day, the leadership always says, what are the costs associated with this? And what is it going to reduce from somewhere else in the organization, right? Like, where am I going to cut costs in order to justify this cost? So with this study and this approach, they actually were able to translate this loss of time into cost. And 30 to 40% of loss in productivity is definitely worth investing time and resources towards solving. Most organizations that I've worked with don't know how much time is wasted at the operations level. But by doing an internal audit, you'll be surprised at what you might find. So I kind of want to talk about the significance of the 30 to 40% of time wasted. So, it takes away from higher level tasks that your staff could be spending their time on, like analyzing trends for early intervention, as well as opportunities to be proactive versus reactive. Another thing to note is that this doesn't include any time lost correcting manual data entry errors. And based off the results from the game, we can see that, a good majority of people are still have a manual data entry process. So this number doesn't even reflect that time lost there. So it makes you think, are there other areas where a significant amount of time is being wasted? So that's kind of the significance of the study. But I wanted to talk through their solution, okay? So their solution is they invested in a new mobile digital record system, which reduced the amount of time spent tracking down records. It cut administrative costs and improved faculty and student communication. And the big takeaway is that they quantified the problem, justified the expense to save money down the line, implemented technology to solve the problem, which resulted in value experience in other places throughout the organization. So having scalable processes will prepare you to take on more cohorts, programs, locations. I've spoke with, school operators and owners that said, you know what, with implementing these new these new processes and these new technologies, we've now got approved for more cohorts, more programs, more locations. So it justified the cost of the expense for the technology because now they have scalable systems where they can prove that they can handle a larger student population. So, and another thing to kind of just consider here is, without insights to the behavioral data, which is, time lost because just there's inefficient processes. Most leadership teams don't even know these problems exist. So it's really good to do this internal audit. So, based on that, I wanted to talk about change versus transformation, because when it comes time to evaluating a tech solution to solve an organizational problem, it's important that you understand the difference between change and transformation. And the difference is really clear. So change is something that changes over time incrementally, which could mean a change to a reporting process or a change in marketing strategies to meet, new demands of the market. A more obvious example of small incremental change is one we experience in the music industry. Okay, so in the music industry, we had vinyl records, then we created tape, then tape players, and then we transitioned to CDs, right? But transformation is significantly different. So transformation is doing something so different that it becomes a quantitative shift, not just a qualitative shift. So a transformation is adopting radically different technologies or processes. Radically different is the key word here. So an example was going from an MP3 player to streaming services. So, there's a big shift because before we used to buy MP3 players. Now we adopt and subscribe to streaming services. And now you can carry an entire music library in your pant pocket with no moving parts, right? So if you think about all the moving parts that it takes to play a record, a tape player, a CD, and then now what does it take to actually play your favorite song from your pant pocket? It's significantly different, right? So, we used to buy record holders, then tape holders and CD holders. And I don't remember if you guys, I don't know if you guys remember seeing these in people's houses, but they would have CD towers. And that was something that they would display and be part of their household. That is not the case anymore. So the market and the supplemental markets and manufacturing companies all changed because of this transformation in the music industry. So, and a part of me looks back and appreciates those times. I appreciate going to Sam Goody and some of these other record stores and looking for my favorite record. But, no matter what and how I feel about those times are over, right? And they ended, and there wasn't anything that I could do about it. But now we subscribe to streaming services and add music to our digital libraries in a cloud storage somewhere and have access to every record ever made instantaneously on our cell phones. And I love that part about it too. So a part of me misses going into those individual stores and just browsing through things. But in all honesty, I really love that I can play anything when it comes to my head at any moment. So, if I would have told you that 20 years ago, if I would have told you 20 years ago that you could have had, your favorite record at any time playing from your cell phone, and if you think about where cell phones were 20 years ago, you would think that was crazy. So that's true transformation. And this beauty of it is that the digital transformation introduced new positions in the music industry, which includes, but isn't limited to, data architects, analysts, new digital marketing personnel, etc. So the transformation of the technology actually introduced more opportunities within that sector for employment, skill sets. More importantly, now these companies have gained insight into information they never had before, like which persona streams longer than others, which ones are most likely to continue using the service based on engagement trends, which ones use, what demographics should we target and market to attract more people like them, people that are more likely to stay engaged with the streaming service. So now I'm only focusing on those people because now they have those insights. So in order to play and win in the future, the employees in this industry are required to offer a whole new set of skill sets and value. But there were plenty of job opportunities to fill after that. So, I've talked a lot about the music industry, and it's kind of like, okay, enough about the music industry. How do these lessons translate to education? We know transformation is happening in other sectors, but should we care about this as leaders in the education sector? And, the answer is absolutely. But, another portion of that is, a report came out by McKinsey and Company and quoted an Oxford University study that found 47% of US jobs are highly automatable. Jobs in the education sector are included there. And what's misleading is that this statement gives the impression that 47% of job titles will not exist once automated, which is not the case. Certain technologies will transfer the type of work that we do on a daily basis, but our titles will remain relatively the same. So it's important for faculty when you're adopting a new technology for them to know that robots won't replace them altogether once a new tech solution is adopted. But it might replace the manual work they were previously responsible for. So, and a lot of faculty doesn't necessarily recognize this in the beginning. This is not something that's immediately evident to them. So, but having a leadership team with a great vision that can communicate this to them and motivate employees to embrace the change makes all the difference. So this report also stated that job automation will reduce errors and increase productivity tremendously. It will become an important competitive differentiator. So I don't know about you, but I pay attention to statements like these. It is a competitive world, and as an executive, staying competitive in the marketplace is definitely a top priority. So, what does job automation have to do with competitive advantage? In my time in the space, I've noticed a lot of outdated systems and processes that can be addressed with adopting the right technology. So, and now we all understand the implications that manual data entry can have on SAP, LDA, cash flow, which is a risk we take when not having automated processes and data transfer. So, and as I mentioned before, I've seen schools implement a new technology which reduced their data collection and analysis turnaround time by an entire week. And this is what I mentioned before, that it's important to have like this quantitative data so that you can always benchmark against the change that this technology actually brought to your organization. So if you know that, hey, in externships, I can't get, my LDA to move because the time to collect these forms is could take up to 10 days, then if you adopt a new technology and reduces it to 1, that's significant improvement, right? And that's what you should be looking for in a technology. And that's where that's the competitive differentiator, right? That's what I look for when a new technology crosses the table and our company wants to adopt a new technology. It's like, how much of an impact is this actually going to make daily, weekly, monthly? So, but there's also a productivity impact a new tech solution can offer. Uh, Imagine a world where data is being collected in every class, every instructor, every assignment for every student, and then analyzed by a system that already has your success thresholds embedded in them, while at the same time doing real-time analysis. And then tells you exactly where to focus so that you can maximize success at your organization. And that's the world we're going towards, right? So if you think about that, and if you think about like all your systems working together and all that data is being collected on a regular basis, and it's doing the analysis and the crunching, and it's not a person responsible for doing that. You know, how many emails and phone calls would that save you daily? How much time would you save your team from data collection, data entry, data analysis? More importantly, how would that impact the number of students the organization could service? Having scalable processes will allow you to take on a bigger student population. So the next slide is, transformative technology impact. So it's important to know how a technology might impact your team. Personnel will spend less time spent on repetitious drudge work. More time will be spent on high-level tasks such as creating new or more effective intervention strategies, or time spent creating better student engagement. This type of technology should allow you to have same-day intervention. And eventually, it should create new jobs with better opportunities, just like I mentioned in the education sector. I see a lot of, I work with a lot of school operators, and I've seen how certain positions have significantly changed after new technology was implemented. Registrars are spending more time doing analysis and giving really good insights to the leadership that they never had before. And the registrars are excited because now they're not spending time doing the same thing 5-6 hours a day. Now they're actually doing discovery. They're looking into information, identifying trends, and they're excited about the position. So, there will be, an evolution of certain jobs, and then there will be entirely new jobs created if you adopt the correct technology. So, the next slide is have an effective implementation plan. So once you've identified, okay, there is a need, you do some internal audit and you find out, there is a significant amount of waste happening in this area. And, you do the evaluation of technologies and figure out where you need help. And then you say, okay, we're going to move forward with this. How do you have an effective implementation plan? Is probably one of the biggest things that I hear from executives and leaders in the space. So this can be accomplished in a few ways. I can start by building a culture of learning. Employees should have the expectation that technology will continuously evolve with the company as they learn and grow. So the tech should support them, supplement them. It shouldn't have any negative impact. It should only improve their daily workflow. And now they'll be working with a tech solution that hopefully, involves them in new tech builds. So they actually have the opportunity to be on the bleeding edge and be involved in alpha and beta stages. They have the opportunity to become contributors to new tech that will bring value to the organization for years to come. And I've seen different staff members get excited when they see that I have an entire engineering team willing to build a solution to my problems, and I can validate whether it's good or not. And that's something that they don't get to do on a daily basis. So if you pick the right tech, a tech that's continuing to evolve, a tech that's continuing to improve, that'll definitely help with morale. And another thing is you got to get internal buy-in. So identify a group or department where the solution could have the most impact. And it's important that you identify champions that can sell across the organization, that serve as mentors, teachers, and just overall, kind of promoters of the new solution. And last but not least, and it's definitely very important to have to continue strong executive support even after implementation. Now, I can't stress this part enough. Some of the most successful and timely system integrations and implementations that I've been a part of have had the most engaged executive and leadership staff that could mobilize the people responsible for the execution. The more involved your team feels that you are as a leader, the more attentive they will be to project deliverables. And, if project deliverables get missed, then you're maintaining dual systems, some paper, some digital, and that becomes kind of a headache. So it's important for the leaders to express the importance of executing on deliverables internally so that they can actually standardize this new digital solution in their organization. And then change management is one of the most important components of having successful implementation. When your staff understands the why, they will be more likely to stick through a growing pain and maintain optimism during the transition, which is important for maintaining the good company culture. So next slide is, integrating systems is the only way that this is possible. So you've had the implementation best practices. You know that once I decide to adopt the technology, that these are a couple of things that is important for your organization to do in order to have a seamless implementation. But true success is kind of contingent on being able to integrate the new system with existing technologies. And I've come across companies that either can't or are not willing to integrate with other solutions that their clients use. And what I've noticed about these companies is that they're typically less innovative and either can't or won't allocate the technical resources to ensure a seamless integration with the new technology. And the only reason why I mention this is because we talked about winning and losing in the future, right? Like setting your organization up for success. And in a world where there is an app for everything, working with a tech organization that is providing a solution that doesn't see where the future is headed, they're most likely not going to be competitive for long term. So when evaluating a new tech solution, make sure those vendors, those partners, that their vision includes integrated systems. And as your business evolves, make sure that the solutions and technologies adopted are capable of evolving with it. And I think this is really important to making sure that you remain competitive long term, and that when you decide to partner with somebody for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, that you really get a sense that they have a really long-term vision, and that they're willing to continue to adapt, and that they're willing to continue to support your team and integrate with systems that you adopt later. So kind of the wrap up here is, even the most innovative organizations don't have fully integrated solutions that feed them insights and drive their intervention strategies. And we kind of saw that in the results from the game that we played earlier. And so make sure that when you adopt the solution, that solution is modern, innovative, and they are willing to work with other technologies in the education ecosystem. A lot of you have said that you don't believe that the technologies you use today will be the technologies you use 10 years from now. So, it's important that when you decide to adopt a new technology, that you can say yes to that question, because you know that this technology is going to continue to evolve and adapt, and you're going to adapt and evolve with it. And also look for solutions that force your organization to transform their individual positions. Their individual positions will evolve if the technology is innovative enough. So, it's important to kind of take a look back and see, how is this new technology going to evolve these positions, and how is that going to make a difference in my organization long term? So, thank you all for taking the time to hear me speak. I hope that you took away some valuable information. I try to keep it short and sweet because I know it's at the end of the day. But I'd like to turn over the floor over to Hannah and open up, any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark, for the wonderful presentation. And for those of you in the audience, as Mark said, it is the end of the day. We understand some of you might be tired, but hope you can grab a coffee and submit some questions. We do have about 10 to 15 minutes left, so submit those. You can use either the chat function or the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. In the meantime, Mark, to start, how do you suggest starting a process audit?
A process audit?
Yeah.
So, first I would actually just what I've seen to be most effective is, the leadership actually go and just talk to different positions in the organization and just listen, right? And just ask, what is your day-to-day look like? What frustrates you daily? Where do you think there could be improvements, right? And more importantly, how is it impacting the student's experience? And you'll be surprised how much your staff will talk if they feel that you truly care and you're really looking for the real answers to those questions. So that's where I would start. I would start by just talking to different functions in the organization, from admissions to enrollments and registrars to academics, compliance, and just start collecting feedback. And you'll be surprised about what they say. And then you can dive a little bit deeper, but you kind of need a little holistic view of each function and department to kind of identify, okay, I hear a lot more screaming over here, and that might not necessarily mean, there's a bigger problem in this particular department, just because they're the loudest ones. But, if they're really quiet and you don't see any issues and nobody feels like there can be any improvements, then you definitely go to the place where you hear a lot more issues. But you still want to go through and just ask them what their daily life work looks like. And that's where I would start, is each function, each position. You talk about what does your day-to-day look like. And then they might not even know that there's issues because they're just so used to doing certain processes or functions a certain way. But you being there and not seeing it every day as a leader, you might quickly identify that, hey, this is not right. And I can't believe we've been doing this for a long time, which is what I've seen. So that's where I would start. I would just start, taking a holistic view, just talking with your staff, seeing where they're having problems, and then actually sitting down with them and going through their day-to-day. That's the only way that the University of Oklahoma was able to do it, is they actually sat down and watched people performing, different tasks, and they saw how much time was being lost every day. So I think that's where you start.
Great. And you mentioned this when talking about the transformation of the music industry, but in terms of the education sector, what are some new roles that you've seen or anticipate seeing emerge through implementation of new technologies?
So definitely one is the IT department, right? So I've seen the IT department evolve drastically because, years ago, the IT department's function was to slice cables and set up servers and make sure that, communications were working properly and all that. And now a lot of that is cloud-based and there are services available for that. So now you see IT department setting up analytics tools, setting up reporting, setting up notifications, monitoring and crunching data using cool tools like Power BI to do analysis. And that's where I've seen a big kind of transformation happening there is the IT department, that now they're doing things to provide insight and feed from the technology to the leadership what's happening and what does all this mean. So I've seen a lot of that change over the past couple of years. And then when you're talking about just operations, I've seen a lot of that evolve as well. When you had staff that was typically used to spending, 5 to 6 hours a day on manual data entry, and now you don't have to spend any of that time on manual data entry, then now I've seen them actually, studying and analyzing those reports and doing early intervention and saving students from dropping out, which obviously impacts the bottom line. So I've seen actually the positions just evolve And in terms of new positions, I haven't seen too many new positions. I think we're still kind of early there to have, because I don't think a lot of schools really, they're not adopting the technologies. All the technologies aren't communicating yet. But once they start communicating to each other and you start aggregating all this data, then I see that a lot of need for like data scientists and things like that to set up the data. And then, I see those kind of new jobs coming into the sector, but they're just not there yet. But I've seen a lot of evolution of current jobs and roles.
Awesome. And next question is, I have a gaming system, and then in parentheses for clarification, questions in a game format in my online education. Do you see a future in keeping this in my education?
Gaming? Can you read that one time?
Yeah, I think gamification is the...
Oh yeah, because there's twofold. For adopting technology, you definitely want something that's going to help operations, give you insights. There's going to be technology that impacts bottom line, and that helps with retention, which helps with growth. But then there's going to be the other technologies that also contribute to that, but just in a different way, which is the gamification, which is the student engagement, providing a great experience for the students in the classroom. Because when you have students that really love coming to class and they have a good experience, they're going to tell their friends. And then you have advocates of your program, you have advocates of your school. And the gamification just helps with learning, right? I hope that us playing a game in the beginning actually made it a little bit more engaging, made it a little bit more fun. And that I had that in my slides. So the answer is yes. I feel like gamification does improve the student experience. And I feel like outside of all the operational benefits that technology brings, I feel like you should always still focus on the student, because without them, we don't have jobs, right? So like we need to make sure that they feel good about coming to class and that they're taking something away from it, because everything that they use today has gamification tied to it, right? When I'm looking at certain social media apps that I engage with, they gamify it and they make it exciting and they make me want to interact with it more. So they're familiar with that stuff already, and it's almost expected. So when you introduce that into your classroom, they're saying, okay, this school is modern. They know what we like, and they'll appreciate you even more.
Great. And the next question is, I still do a lot of data entry for my online education. How can I minimize that as you suggested? Are there programs out there to help with this?
Yes, it just depends on, where that data is coming from and then where it's going to. So the solution is always making sure that you're adopting technologies that are willing to work with each other. And I think that there's businesses that you purchase and technologies that you purchase will adapt to the market. So if there's leadership that says, you know what, in order for me to continue using this, and in order for me to promote your company, I need you to work with this new system. Otherwise, all that advocacy goes away. So I think if you put pressure on these technologies to work with other technologies that you're adopting, then we'll see those companies be more willing to have those conversations with those other technologies. So I think that if you can't mobilize them and get them to talk to each other, then it's probably time to start shopping and find those solutions that will and are willing to integrate with other technologies.
Great, and that's an easy lead-in into the next one. The next question is, you said you've seen companies that are unwilling to integrate with other systems. Having had these conversations for years, do you see them more willing over time?
So that's a great question. So certain companies, I think once their adoption goes down, once they start seeing a decline in new customer adoption, I think they're going to be more willing to. And if they see an increased pressure from those organizations and leaders that are saying, I need you to integrate with System A, and I've been asking you for years, and now I'm frustrated. Those companies, if they don't notice that, you're no longer engaged with them, if they don't notice that, you're unhappy with them, then those are the type of companies that I'm talking about that won't be competitive for very long. Because as I see a lot of these big companies and big organizations, they're creating ecosystems of technology, and they're willing to integrate. Those are the ones that the market are going to gravitate towards, and then it's going to leave everybody else behind. So for our company, for CourseKey, we make it very, we prioritize integrations with other companies, because we know that we can't build everything and we won't build everything, but our clients need a lot of solutions to scale their companies. So if we can help, we will. And I think it's important when you're having those conversations with new companies that they feel the same way. I hope that answered your question. I think they'll start to change once they see their adoption go down, and the market just demands it. They won't have a choice.
Great. Well, those are all the questions we have right now. So if you're in the audience and you still have curiosities, now's the time to submit them. So let's give it about 20, 30 seconds, see if we get anything else. All right, looks like that might be the end of the Q&A. Well, thank you everybody for attending and spending part of your afternoon with us. Special thank you to Marc for your expertise on the topic. Thank you to everybody who's attended just this one event, multiple events today. This was our first virtual summit. We had a wonderful turnout, tons of registration, tons of attendees. We've had great questions throughout the entire day, and you guys made that possible. So thank you so much for being part of this. We're looking forward to doing it again next year and hope you'll join us again. If you had fun during this event and you want to continue partaking in content like this, please go to our website, CourseKey.com, and sign up for our mailing list. We send out alerts every time there's a webinar or new content available for you. So that's the best way to make sure you never miss an opportunity like this. And again, just thank you, Marc, and thank you everybody for spending some time with us today.
Of course, thank you.